p.m., Wednesday, November 9th, first floor conference room at City Hall. Should be noted all members are present. Go around the room real quick.
Greg Hutt.
Todd Ferke.
Scott Kelly.
Jim Stack.
Mayor Zach Verlink.
Tim DeSorsi.
Joe Zerflu.
Steve Gold.
Joe Terry.
Joe Buckman, South Rapid City Times.
Terry Dolan, item 1, call to order. Item 2, review and consider a resolution amending the 2016 budget.
Okay, at the October 12th meeting of the Police and Fire Commission, as you know, the police chief is retiring, and they are looking at contracting with McGrath Consulting Group to conduct a recruitment process. And they requested that $2,500 be, their budget be amended to $2,500 for 2016, and then they also put in a budget request, which is built in the 2017 budget, of another $11,500 for recruitment in 2017. So the resolution is transferring $2,500 out of the contingency into the Police and Fire Commission budget for 2016.
Is that similar to what they did when Chief Hoyer was hired?
Correct. I believe we've used McGrath in the past for both fire and police chief recruitment.
And the recruitment and screening, I think the services they're looking to do through this process is character profile and do some of the screening. So I think the recruitment aspect is been determined that HR can probably perform much of that function, so they're not paying someone an upcharged rate for some of those services that HR would be performing.
So with the recruitment then, I know with other times when we went through HR, there was some, if a applicant was chosen, then the city was also responsible for part of that first salary, right, or a portion. Is that going to be the same situation?
No, this is just to facilitate, actually just provide services of screening candidates. It isn't a recruiter or a headhunter that's going out and finding someone, bringing them in. Like
Okay, so it's just
director. Yes, no, this is for services provided.
Question though.
And of course, the posting will be on WileyNet, so that's like a statewide, and there's probably a lot of applicants, and that's why they think this is necessary.
Yeah, and I think many of the commissioners work full-time, and so the thought process was to utilize a firm for some of the screening, and so they can whittle through the applicants, and so they're not having to deal with all of the applicants at one time, and then ultimately they would still conduct an active interview process. My understanding is, and I know they had a meeting this morning, I typically don't go to their meetings, but do know that the chairperson had said that they intend to be active, and there was an original proposal, I think, of $15,000, and so they pared it back to just what they felt they wanted the outside resources support, as well as what HR can perform from what the original proposal was. So it's much more pared back than originally what this firm had proposed to do for the recruitment and screening process.
anybody else?
I think that's a good idea, so I'll make a motion to approve amending the 2016 budget to take $2,500 out of contingency and put it into the Police and Fire Commission. Or just approve, resolution number 21 amending the 2016.
And then we'll attach it.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Would've been easier to say.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Agenda item 3, update on aquatics design proposals.
So we had hoped to be in a situation where we could make a recommendation this evening. We reviewed proposals and requested in short order to have interviews with several firms. We did get half of them interviewed yesterday. But due to scheduling challenges, the other half will be tomorrow. So we're not in a position to make that recommendation tonight.
And we're gonna have a meeting next week, so would you be ready for next week?
We may be. One of the issues we have is that we will want to go visit one or more of the facilities that are similar in scope to what we're looking for. And given the significant outlay that this project's going to take, I want to make sure that we
Sure.
take those opportunities and make sure that we're fully confident before making a recommendation.
Yeah, let's do it right, for sure.
With your on-site visits, will there be enough heads up for the council to possibly go along?
Yeah, we'll certainly want to engage a reasonable number of council members to attend and be able to provide that input, be part of the process.
So each one of these firms has a aquatic center someplace close, or not necessarily?
Well, hopefully within a few hour drive, yeah.
And I think the other potential would be to have some phone discussion with some of the facility managers as well as those that have been involved with various aspects of the development of the project. So it may not be that a site visit is necessary before we select consultants, but
Right.
certainly want to have discussion with some of those, whether it's the Oshkosh facility or the Hartford facility. There's a couple of others, Appleton, yeah, all of which have been developed by one or more of the consultants that have been proposed to do the design here.
Correct.
Water technology, though, is the backbone. If you've seen the proposals of at least two, right?
Three of the four.
Three of the four. So while there's design services being provided by some of the consultants, Water Tech, the producer of the tank and,
Right, that designs the aquatic portion.
is consistent. So I think unless we select the fourth, which is an all-encompassing firm,
Right.
one-stop shop, but I think there's some some
Oh, yeah.
comfort in knowing that Water Tech is in a good position to be maybe one of the firms that we select.
I was gonna say, I know we're early on, but really not early on in this process anymore. We've been talking about for a while. So what is our timeline then if we get this done and we?
Well, certainly I think we would have every intention of approving something. I don't know if I don't know that we'll be able to make it for our regularly scheduled council meeting, but I would anticipate requesting a special council meeting prior to our regular December meeting. Because
just talk to Chairman Jim down there and we're good to go.
in order to, the project schedule as we have proposed is quite aggressive. And, obviously the sooner that we can commence design work, in that process, the better.
And we understand it's a big project. I think everybody you talk to does, but I mean, we don't wanna be 3
No.
years old.
No,
No, definitely not. I think the other aspect of this is the fund solicitation or fundraising. There has to be some level of design completed before we engage with some of these folks.
Sure.
I know just in a discussion I had yesterday morning with one of the potential funders, keep us in the loop as to design developments and really not any willingness to engage much more beyond that until we have some design to show. Which makes sense. I mean,
Yeah, you can't blame them.
for anybody who is interested on the council, because of the tight scheduling, it has been challenging to get all of the staff and council members that are kind of a part of the interview process there. So we are videotaping those interviews so that staff and council members that don't have the opportunity to be present would have the opportunity to view them if you wish.
So we just come here and
yeah,
grab somebody.
we've requested to have them put it on a private YouTube link, so we can just share the link.
Oh,
So we can
okay.
listen to it on the go maybe, and then the other would be to check out a DVD or a CD or some
Good. Yeah,
fashion.
because, I definitely want to listen. but
Yeah.
Just hard to get out of work there today.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, it's been hard because we've had to aggressively schedule these guys and.
Well, that's
our
okay. You
schedules are
guys
set
keep
this
plowing
week.
ahead. Some of us can make it sometimes.
Yeah. If possible, if you rather than just an audio link, to see the video
Yeah,
would be advantageous. I made one of them yesterday, and some of the amenities that they had were very interesting, so.
definitely very familiar with the Hartford one. My niece and her husband live down there, and the kids love it there. So that facility, so it's got to be pretty nice, I'm guessing. But I've only seen
Similar
still
scope.
pictures of it because that's all they said. But
Popular
Okay.
facility though.
I think in the meantime, as we move forward with this and request comments, one of the things we will be thinking about is theming. And I think, that's something that you can talk with your constituents about now, some different theming ideas and to make this facility special for our community.
okay, great, thanks for the update. Any other questions? All right. Review and consider a grant management policy.
Okay. I'm not looking for approval of this tonight, because obviously you just received it tonight. I just finished up, and I distribute this to department heads, and I'd like to get their feedback on it before we adopt it. But so just to kind of like to just briefly go through it tonight, and then we'll put it on the agenda for the next finance committee meeting. And basically, the permanent spend management policy just kind of lay out the responsibilities throughout the organization for when the city solicits grants and departments solicit grants, that we have a formal process both for approval and also that we're ensuring that the department that is seeking the grant and is ultimately awarded the grant is executing the proper documents, maintaining the proper grant files, so that when we're subject to a single audit, and what a single audit is if the city receives over $750,000 in federal funds in any one given year, our auditors that do our financial audit also have to do a single audit where they look at your major federal grant programs, and they go through the grant file to make sure that you followed all the grant requirements and then all the proper documentation is there. And actually the federal government is now kind of cracking down on federal grants, and they're making sure that the grants are being followed, being properly, costs are allowable and eligible. And what is happening is that any grant findings that the single audit that reveals is that you have to submit a corrective action plan, and if those are not corrected in a timely manner, the federal government is looking at that, and it could jeopardize the city's ability to get federal funds in the future. So it's something that we want to make sure that departments are properly following all the grant guidelines. And basically what this policy does is just say, okay, if a department does it, these are the things that you should consider in your when you're evaluating your grant. And what we're going to have them do is I'm going to create a grant request form that's going to kind of lay out the information that you see under the grant application process where they kind of do a grant assessment, and that's saying where they're kind of looking at what is the project costs, what are the matching requirements, staffing requirements, verifying the source of funds, because it's very important that they're federal funds that we identify that up front, because we have to get a federal domestic assistance number that is included on the single audit report. And one of the big things that the auditors are looking for is that we know every single dollar that's federal that's coming into this city, and we know it up front. So that's one of the very key internal controls and so basically all those grant request forms are going to come to me so that I can verify that, okay, they've looked in it, they've verified the source of the funds, so then I can properly set it up in our accounting system. Basically they'll fill that out, and then based on, if you turn to the following page, this is the grant approval. Based on the size of the grant, whether it has matching funds or continuation of funds beyond the grant period, will dictate the approval level. So as you can see, grants less than $5,000. If there's no local match required, basically the department head has the authority to seek the grant, and also with my approval. And the reason why my approval is there, so I'm aware that they're applying for these funds, and I can verify if they're federal or not. If there's a local match, if it's less than $5,000, but there's a local match, and that can be covered within the department's budget, then the mayor ultimately then has to approve that. If they don't have the matching funds in their budget and it's less than $5,000, then it has to come to the council, because obviously, for one, it's like they don't have the funds in their budget, so they're gonna have to have some type of budget amendment to find those matching funds. And also there's stipulations on whether there's a commitment of funds after the grant period, which is very important, because you can get a grant, but then sometimes some of those grants require that you maintain that program beyond the grant award, so basically you have to utilize local funds, and if that's the case, then obviously we want that to come to the council, because you're committing future budgets for that. Grants $5,000 but less than $25,000. If there's no local match, the mayor would be the highest approval authority there. And then obviously anything beyond that where there's a local match, whether it's in the budget or not, would require finance and council approval. And then any grant of any type more than $25,000 ultimately has to come before the finance committee and council. And then just kind of goes through some of the post-award procedures, and that's just laying out the department's responsibilities. And basically what I'm asking each department is that if a department seeks a grant, that they appoint someone within the department as the grant manager, so that we have a point person, that someone that I know to go to and can communicate with as far as the grant documents and things like that. Also part of this is a procurement policies and procedures. This is a matrix that basically mirrors one that we approved, I think last year, that will be coming forward in a separate procurement policy, but this is specific to the grants. I think we approved this last October, so that just mirrors that thing. It's just laying out based on the size of the purchase, whether, how many quotes you have to get, written bid, public bid, so that just kind of lays that out. The grant accounting is just basically laying out my responsibilities for what I have to do on our financial system. And then basically the grant closeout is once the grant is closed and the department is to notify me of that. They review their file, their grant project file, to make sure everything's in there, and then the grant project file will be delivered to me. And then I will have a master grant file where we keep all the city's grants, so that down the road, if we get audited or there's things, we know where all the grants are. In fact, just to give you an example of, is just this past year, we received from the state, they audited a grant from 2007. So, because they're closing out their grants, so we have to make sure that we have that grant file, and that's why I want them all in one central location, because some of these audits can happen years and years later, and if they're spread out throughout the city, stuff can get lost, so that's why they'd be all coming, once it's closed out, I would be basically the keeper of all those grant files. Because ultimately, for the single audit and things like that, I'm the one that usually deals with the auditors. Conflict of interest language, that's just standard, that has to be in the policy according to the federal government. And then just audit, just laying out the audit that we could have if we have over $750,000 of federal funds. Like I said, I sent this out to the department heads just earlier tonight. I want their feedback, because obviously this affects them. So that just gives you an overview, and then based on the response from department heads and input, there may be some modifications, and then I'll bring it back at the next finance committee for formal approval.
I do have a question, and I'm wondering if it'd be appropriate to include it within this policy, or potentially to suggest a complementary policy. But that would also be one where, a grant is generally funds that are specifically earmarked by an agency for a certain type of project. There may be instances where department heads or the city or that they're to solicit funds for other purposes where those funds aren't specifically grant funds. For example, we're looking to solicit funds to aid in the construction costs of the aquatic center. I think it would be probably in the best interest of the city to consider having a policy that would require some type of formal approval for that, so that if there are departments that may be soliciting, from a business or whatever, that that is aligned with the city's perhaps a solicitation plan. If one department has something that they want to do and gets permission to do so and makes an ask, and all of a sudden maybe some company does something for the protective services, and one agency had already asked and got something, but it wasn't, anyway, that there be some type of a policy in place so that the city considers those types of asks as well and prioritizes them before department heads maybe, trying to be in the best interest of the city, but maybe go out and compete unknowingly.
Or be invited to solicit funds in a way that might require grant funds and matching
Right.
funds and sustaining funds. It puts the city in a really, the governing body in a very awkward position to have to approve it. And I think that it doesn't happen often, but it has, and it may happen again. So I think it could be twofold beneficial
Right.
in that regard. I mean, at the same time, I kind of want to balance because a lot of these grants have strange cycles of application, and we've all been there, right? Especially when these department heads come across them late, it's typically before the, so, it's certainly need a grant management policy. At the same time, it's, this would allow department heads and almost force better practices as it relates to solicitation and sourcing of grant funds for different purposes. So, but with that said, it's just a delicate balance, and everybody has to comply, and it makes sense.
I guess I remember not that long ago where we had some issues come up where one department was accepting a grant and then it was almost put the city on the hook for some matching funds. So, yeah, without a policy,
Right, I mean, I think the
how
thing
do
is
you
we're
turn the
not,
money away?
Yeah.
we're not get out ahead of that, they don't have to, they go through this, they know what the approval process is. And, obviously, there's gonna be situations where, obviously you become aware of a grant and it's a narrow window and, the policy to guide general practice. There's always gonna be exceptions to the policy just based on extenuating circumstances. It's like, so, okay, we realize this, we just became aware of this grant opportunity, we have to expedite this, and at that point, what it might be is that, yeah, I mean, especially if it's one where it's just kind of like, that doesn't really obligate the city in any manner, you're gonna wanna take advantage of it, and it would be kind of like, almost like approval after the fact, but it would be noted that, obviously because of this situation, you document the situation of like, okay, there was a tight timeline, became aware of it, had to do this, and, so.
Thanks. Anybody else? All right, item 5, final review of the 2017 budget. I like that.
Okay, this is the latest and greatest, and hopefully it's the, other than some of the, as we receive the other taxing jurisdictions, tax levy certifications, that should be the only changes going forward, hopefully. We want to, one note that in the Public Works Construction Fund, I don't know, Joe, if you want to review the changes that came about there.
The November surprises.
Yeah, I'll caution anyone that once the finance director has the budget complete, there's kind of that Mr. Hulk type thing. Show up at the 11th hour with something significant. So what had happened in the Public Works Construction Fund is that with one of the projects proposed for next year, Washington Avenue, the storm sewer in that street had televised and to be in good shape. However, upon reviewing the construction documents, was found that piece of infrastructure is over 100 years old. And so even though it appears to be in good shape, it wouldn't be prudent to leave it, since it's also the deepest piece of infrastructure. If it would fail, everything else on top could be compromised, including other utility infrastructure. And so, so the engineering staff was tasked to revise that particular area of the Public Works Construction Fund and to evaluate a few other projects to see if we could drop some off for next year. We've made some adjustments in the Grand Avenue and 8th Street signal, the safety project. We've had to scale that back a little bit. There's been some changes there. One of the things that quite frankly, we're disappointed to have to scale back on, but at this point, we don't see any other solution, is the left turn flashing yellow. That's a fairly significant expense. We are postponing one of our approach intersections on the expressway north of Grand. I don't recollect if that's High Street.
High Street.
Yeah.
The High Street intersection, we were planning on doing that next year. We'll have to hold that off. And the balance
Wilson
is
Street.
Wilson. I think we're still doing that
Yep.
one, or that one.
Right.
And the rest of the balance, we're looking at our general obligation debt to cover. So a little bit of a last minute scramble to make that work, but I think we've got a responsible construction schedule and budget ahead of us here.
Yeah, so basically that was about $185,000 increase in the project for Washington for the storm sewer, of which approximately $90,000 was put on the general obligation debt, and the rest of it came out of the reduction in the concrete pavement patching for next year and the assessor plats in the engineering department to fund that. Other than that, I think those are the only changes that are to the budget at this time. Just a kind of a summary, we're looking at from the revenue side, obviously, we're still looking at an approximate 12 cents per thousand increase in the city tax rate, which is approximately 1%. Right now, I got some preliminary estimates from Wood County for their levy, and overall, at this point, the gross tax rate is going up about 21 cents or 0.7%. For all the taxing jurisdictions. I'm still waiting on school district's final numbers, and Wood County will actually be adopting their official budget the same day that we do ours, so I'll probably get their levy certification shortly before our meeting on Tuesday. Obviously, next year, one of the major increases is the proceeds from long-term debt, increasing about $6 million, but obviously we know the bulk of that is for the aquatics project, which constitutes $5 million of that. For public works instruction, we have a slight increase of about $1,150,000 to support that program, and about $750,000 to support the East River Bank Trail project. And then on the, as I mentioned last time, the ambulance rates based on our ambulance consultant, we're raising the base rates of about $50 and a corresponding same percentage increase in the mileage and non-resident fee. And then obviously a $2 and another in the stormwater utility, a $2 increase in the stormwater charge per equivalential residential unit. And those increases will be coming forth at a future meeting for proper approval. But those are kind of, those increases are built into the revenue side of this 2017 budget. I also, tonight also emailed you this document and also the updated departmental budgets. So you'll see an email from me or a PDF of those budgets. I didn't print them out because it's such a large document until we finally approve, we get everything in there. Once we have final approvals, then I will produce a hard copy for all the aldermen and bind it up so they can have an official document, but I wanted to provide you with the PDF so they can, you know, go through the departmental budgets if you so chose. Other than that, I'll entertain any questions or and like I expressed, I will be having a meeting before the council meeting on Tuesday, because we'll have the official resolution adopting the tax levy and the 2017 budget. Then that'll go to council, and we'll have the public hearing at the beginning of the council meeting on Tuesday, and then adoption of and then approval of the resolution at that time, or hopefully, approval of that.
And as of this morning, I think we're expecting Water and Lights final budget for that meeting. I don't know if you covered that.
Yeah, I was kind of talking about that earlier, is this, Water and Light tomorrow will be amending their 2017 budget based on a meeting we had today, and basically they'll be adding in the Washington Street Water Main project, which is in the 2017 city's budget. And they'll be sending me that revised budget tomorrow, which then I will email to all the aldermen and have a hard copy in your boxes tomorrow. But we need to put their budget on a finance agenda to officially approve that, and we could include it on the meeting before council if the aldermen are comfortable with that, or or if we have a meeting Monday, it's up to you how you feel you want to review that.
I mean, I'm comfortable having it Tuesday, but, I mean, we got project in, we're not gonna go too much argument about anything else. We've had a couple meetings with them, it's up to you guys.
I'm fine with Tuesday.
You guys fine with before the council?
How long do we need for the others? I think an hour would be enough for everything.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Water and Light, I'm guessing Jeff Kuhn will be here from Water and Light to kind of just go over the budget and kind of go through an overview of the budget, and then,
That's how you guys feel. I mean, if we come Monday, it's probably gonna be a half-hour meeting probably. Just do an hour on Tuesday, 5 o'clock, or, 4:45, whatever you want to do.
I mean, I could put the grant management policy on there if you wanted, but then if
I think you did a nice job on it. You could have left it on tonight.
Well, I wanted to get feedback.
These guys have feedback. Oh, you mean the whole
From
thing?
I want the department heads to review it.
No, it looks pretty,
They
I
have
mean,
concerns, so.
did a lot of grants, but it looks like a nice policy.
It's thorough.
Yeah, well encompassing. Really well done.
So, Tuesday okay for you guys then? Just a little early?
5 or 4:45, which one?
That's
I
what
think we'll be done by, so, you do you have to copy anything after that meeting, or will we be good?
Well, I'll do the minutes.
Just the minutes, but you won't have to make any, like, the budgets will all be done and everything.
Yeah, I'll have all the budgets ready to go, and so that would be the proposed agenda.
So we're saying 4:45.
Yeah,
Five?
he's got 5, we'll make it in an hour.
Fine, okay.
Five.
You want me to keep this, or I'm good with it?
Yeah. I'll send that out tomorrow too then.
Okay. All right, so that was, any other questions on the review of the budget? All right. Item 6, before I go to item 6, well, I'll go to item 6, honor the bills, but thanks for sending them out ahead of time again. That is nice. He's got the numbers.
I got
Everyone. Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to approve check number 65202 to 65513 and manual checks 99151 to 99167.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. A motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Adjourned at 6:34 PM.